Let's colour a page together from the Coco Wyo Cozy Days book. I'm using the Bobbie Goods and Ohuhu alcohol markers for this page. For the sky, I wanted something really simple, so I went in with the marker shades B02 and B06 to create a nice blend. For the grass, I went in with YG012 just for that base shade. I used the shade YG113 and added a stippling effect underneath the character's feet and any objects, just to create that shadow. I then used the shade Y515 for the tree trunks. For the top part of the tree, I used the shade Y06. Then I used the marker YG07 to add that stippling effect that I love so much all across 2/3 of the tree. I then grabbed the shade YG113 and added an even darker shade on top of that previous green. I love the stipple technique and I use it on most of my pages. I decided to add some more depth, so I went in with a darker shade. I used the code YG413. I added the shade Y413 to the ladder and to the fencing. Then back in with that previous dark shade of brown to add some texture to the wood. And just because I like to keep my pages looking as cohesive as possible, I use the same shades of brown for the basket on the grass. For the squirrel, I chose the colour YGY11. Using the shades Y55 and V14, I created like a uniform for the characters, so it looks like they're at work. I then used the codes Y27 and YR511 for the cute chick. I used the shade Y410 and Y27 for the lion. I decided to add a gingham pattern for the cloth. I wasn't too sure if this character was a hippopotamus, so I decided it was and went for the colour BV32. Going back in with that previous shade of purple to deepen up the squares on the gingham pattern. And that same shade of brown to add like a weave effect onto the basket. Because I didn't want to overcomplicate the page, I used the exact same colours just to create the shadows on all the objects and characters. I'm then finishing off my page with some white highlights using the Grabie acrylic marker pen. Using the sky as my guideline, everything on the left-hand side of the page had highlights to the right, whereas everything on the right-hand side of the page had highlights to the left. I then used a brown fine liner pen to add some wood grain effect to the tree trunks. I had so much fun colouring this page. It was so simple, it didn't take me long at all, and it was so enjoyable, and it was exactly what I wanted it to be. Here are the colour codes if you're interested in this palette. I hope you enjoyed this colouring session as much as I did. See you at the next one.